President Cyril Ramaphosa will reveal government's economic reconstruction and recovery plan during a joint sitting of Parliament this afternoon. The president will unveil government strategy to kickstart an ailing economy devastated by the hard lockdown. The South African economy contracted by more than 50% annualized in the second quarter as people stayed at home. The president requested the joint sitting in a letter to the Speaker last week, saying the country needs to take extraordinary measures towards a speedy and sustainable economic recovery. He said businesses and Labour had been widely consulted on the plan to set the country on a new and inclusive economic growth path. Political parties across the board are concerned they won't get a chance to respond to President Ramaphosa's address this afternoon. Ramaphosa will address both houses of Parliament in a special joint sitting later today to unveil an economic recovery plan for the country. Parties expressed their desire to respond to this address during the National Assembly Programming Committee meeting this morning. They all say they want to be able to respond and give the President their own suggestions on how to revive the economy following the COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, when the joint sitting was announced, there had been no indication of parties being given an opportunity to respond and debate the address. They all agree that an address of this magnitude needs their input as well. Some MPs said announcements made in the address this afternoon would need to be ratified by Parliament and therefore they would need to respond. While a date is still to be decided on this, National Assembly Speaker Thandi Modise has said today's address will be treated like a State of the Nation address.
We shall treat it like we treat the State of the Nation address. Parties will have whatever on the cuff thing that they usually do, but that we shall then have a very considered debate on the matter on a date that we should agree to. But I do think that we do owe parties the chance to formally respond.
So we continue previewing the President's address. I'm joined now by Old Mutual Chief Investment Strategist, Izak Odendaal. Thank you so much for joining us, Izak. Now, the President will obviously come up with all the goodies like infrastructure investment, a mass job creation program, the freeing up of spectrum to allow for more growth to internet access, growing the economy sustainably in terms of greener investment and all of that. But that wish list, if we can call it that, has to be translated into real action and deliverables, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's the one challenge, obviously, is implementation. And we all know that's always been the Achilles heel of many economic plans that have been announced with great fanfare over the years. And the other thing is simply that while all these points that I expect him to announce will be positive, I think we need to be realistic in terms of the timelines in which they can actually impact the economy. So you mentioned infrastructure, and clearly there's a huge need to develop infrastructure in this country. But, you know, our ability to deliver projects quickly is not what it should be. You know, if you think of most infrastructure is actually done kind of at a local and provincial government level. And just by the very nature of building dams and bridges and highways and so on, those things take time. Take time to plan, take time to execute, and then take time to actually impact the economy through higher productivity.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, it's tricky for you to answer now because we don't know what's up the sleeve of the finance minister. He'll only deliver his midterm budget at the end of the month. But how do we get the balance right between investing in the right things while at the same time cutting expenditure?
That is very tricky. And I think, you know, that's what makes this situation extraordinarily difficult, is because fiscal consolidation, by its very nature, is contracting the economy. You're taking demand out of the economy. So again, this has a longer term story, because what you want to do is you want to shift the mix of spending within the budget away from consumption and wages towards investment, towards the kind of investment spending that will raise long-term productivity. And as we know, in recent years, as the budget has become tighter and tighter, you know, the thing that gives is unfortunately capex. It's unfortunately spending on infrastructure and capital spending. So that makes it very difficult. It's very difficult to launch an economic recovery plan when you don't have fiscal ammunition spend, as we've seen in the rich nations of the world who can borrow at low interest rates, and they've been able to summon trillions of dollars in order to cushion the blow of the coronavirus to the economy, but then also to try and get some sort of recovery going.
Yeah. So business confidence is key to there being a propensity to invest among the private sector, and we need business to have that mindset. But the question is, are they there?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because typically business confidence rises as the economy warms up. You know, businesses get excited when they see customers walking through the door. But of course, the customers are not there. You know, households are financially constrained. So it really is very difficult to kind of raise business confidence, just by making promises. You know, these promises need to translate into action. They need to translate into spending, which will then actually start filtering into the economy. And then you'll start seeing businesses getting very excited and saying, well, you know, stuff's happening. Let's expand. Let's hire on more staff. Let's build new factories, etc.
Yeah. Just give us a sense. I mean, your responses are very conservative, and understandably so. What's the low-hanging fruit, Izak? I mean, what can we attack straight away that can make a material difference on the ground?
The biggest issue for South Africa at the moment is electricity, and it has been for a couple of years, and that's why it's so frustrating that this hasn't been addressed yet, because the easiest thing to do is just to let businesses and municipalities, those who can, generate their own electricity. But there has been quite a hesitance to do so. I mean, obviously, it's fantastic news that we now finally have the next round of renewable energy that's going to start kicking off, and that so-called emergency procurement of electricity, that finally is happening. So I think I'm quite positive that will have a longer-term impact on economic growth, because that is the one thing that holds us back. You can't run a modern economy on diesel generators. So that's good news, and that's the obvious low-hanging fruit. And I think we could have done more in terms of electricity. But again, some progress is better than no progress.
Yeah.
So that's the obvious thing. The other one is obviously spectrum. That's been spoken about a lot.
Izak, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for your insights. Izak Odendaal, he's a strategist at Old Mutual. Let's cross now to Parliament. Our reporter Asanda Mbechi